YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, back on Total War Rome 2, and this time it is going to be Nervii versus Boii. So, in this case, I've brought some skirmishers. My opponent went with all melee and cav, which is probably a pretty good choice because it's actually somewhat harder to protect skirmishers and get them to be useful than it is if you get kind of aggressive and just taking them out. So, I think my opponent's chosen the better armory here, but we'll see how things play out. The Boii and the Nervii are an interesting matchup. Their units are pretty similar. These sword followers are very similar to the fierce swords. Definitely better though with the sword followers, I believe. I believe they're a little better. He has access to heavy horse too, which is going to be similar to the mighty horse that I brought, but I've also brought a couple of noble cav, which has limited my infantry. My opponent's only brought one noble cav, and the money I spent on skirmishers, he's just spent on more infantry and cavalry. So I qualitatively, I think, have a cav advantage, but he quantitatively has the cav advantage with 5 units to my 4. And right now the problem is, how am I going to use my skirmishers? And you can see right now he's going to maneuver over here and probably try and take up position in the forest where my skirmishers can't hurt him, whereas I'm going to reposition out here and try and draw my opponent out onto open ground. Right now I'm not convinced that he has all of his units visible to me, so I am pretty sure that there's some units hiding in these woods here. I'll have to scout that out. So we'll just kind of watch how this plays out. Right here I do something interesting. So not too long ago I showed you all a video, and I'm going to put it in slow motion for just a second. I showed you all a video where I played as Carthage, and I took on the Seleucids, and I took the initiative at a certain moment of the battle and did something kind of risky with my elephants that ended up paying off. So I took my elephants straight against his swords, which you may not have expected. And right here, I see another such example. I see his swordsmen right here. These two particularly vulnerable. Yes, he's got his noble horse nearby, but by taking mighty horse into these swords right here, my opponent wouldn't be able to. He wouldn't. I mean, right now he could counter it with these noble horse, but watch how this plays out. I continue to face my opponent, and he's continuing to try and work to my flank and get into a better position. So I'm going to move back here. He moves forward a little, and you know, I'm just kind of maneuvering my my horsemen around. I don't think I've missed. Actually, I may have missed where I did it. I had an opportunity before he moved this noble cav. All of his cav was out here in the flank. I had an opportunity to just take my mighty horse into his sword followers. And if I would have done that, I could have then followed up with my own infantry, and then, you know, basically I would have had my opponent pinned down right here. And I think I would have had an advantage because none of his infantry would have gotten a charge bonus. Yes, his cavalry could have surrounded, but then I could have brought spears in to support. So if his cavalry comes in from behind or either side, I can just start pouring in spears and more infantry. And basically my opponent would again gotten balled up there. He had units over here that I could have potentially held off, like use spearmen to just kind of protect my back lines for a minute. At the same time, I could have been throwing javelins and reinforcing with all my infantry. At this point, though, I've waited, and my opponent has more of a chance to maneuver. And watch what he does here. He has a small center, and he's taking a flanking force. Whoops, I need to do this. He's taking a flanking force around me, and he's got his cav here. I was paying attention to the other flank, and so my opponent takes the initiative here. I get caught on the hoof, which is bad. And see here, he retreats from this disadvantageous engagement. And if I would have kept cavalry right here, it would have been able to keep him from doing this. But because he's retreating from this engagement, he's pulling my forces apart and basically splitting me up more. Right here, these Oathsworn finally connect with their target, which is those sword followers, and they'll do a considerable amount of damage, but he's going to try and move around and flank. You can see him right now already eyeing these gaps with his noble horse, probably. Yeah. He's going to shoot for that gap and try and get to my skirmishers. So again, it ends up being easier for my opponent to take action now because he's the one that took the engagement on his terms. Yes, it goes alright for me in a few different positions, but because my opponent overall had a better positioning and a better initiative, he can now turn the tide of the battle. Look at this, just slamming into the back of my fierce swords. He's going to wreck those units entirely. And now I'm the reactionary one. See me chasing his cav in, and he's bringing in more units from the flank to help to play in. And here's my skirmishers again. These guys become a liability. They're hard to protect. And his extra cavalry unit here is going to pay off because he can get in and kill all these skirmishers. And again, I'm spread all over the field. I should have taken the initiative early on when I saw his units you know, in danger over there. He had to move his noble horse back. By the time it got there, I could have already destroyed a couple of his infantry units, and then my infantry would have been there to support, forcing him to retreat. I could have had javelins nearby and all that other stuff. So I, again, should have just taken the initiative there and done that. I'm a big fan of when you see an opportunity like that, even if it's potentially risking losing the battle, you should go for it, because, I mean, look how this turns out here. My opponent just gets the better of me everywhere because my forces got split up, and everything I do is a reaction. And it's not doing me any good. I'm just reacting to everything he gives me. And not only that, I'm reacting fairly poorly. Because once you start to lose that initiative, it seems like sometimes you get nervous, you do things wrong. So that's why I'm a big fan of just taking the initiative and going for it. And this is going to be the focus of some of my commentaries. In the next battle, I actually have a really good one for you to show you a similar scenario where I come in. Here, my opponent really picked a better army, in my opinion. Just picked a better army. And however, having taken some initiative could have made this a close battle or potentially a win for me, whereas right here, taking almost no initiative means that this battle turns heavily into my opponent's favor. Just heavily into his favor. So yeah, you can see me still trying to do my best to just hang on for a little while. I'll be able to cause a little more damage to my opponent, but the battle's pretty much over. Even these guys just don't have enough ammo left, really, to get the job done, and I'm losing men pretty quickly now. I was able to mop up an Oathsworn unit he had out here, but his noble horse is now engaged, and my javelins are probably doing just as much damage to me as they are to him. Didn't turn out so well, and I have no way to protect my javelins. One funny thing that happens before the battle is over, I've got this Oathsworn unit out here completely surrounded that's fighting its way from 2 different directions. And I do go ahead and give these guys a frenzy here at the last second, put them into frenzy, because I know that it'll make their morale unbreakable for a brief period of time. So notice right now they have 88 kills, and they're racking up some more against these naked warriors. I put them into frenzy now. They get rear charged by more naked warriors. So these guys are going to take a pretty painful rear charge. It's going to drop most of my unit, and they do almost rout. But watch, here in a second, that morale is going to pop up to 350, and their attack's going to pop up. So now they're unbreakable, basically. And watch the kills just start to spiral up for my Oathsworn. When these guys are in frenzy, they're pretty powerful. Otherwise, not necessarily a super strong unit, but yeah, just look at their kills. Last unit on the battlefield, completely surrounded. They lasted through their endurance of that frenzy and actually got quite a few kills. But good game to my opponent. Like I said, I think he did a good job taking the initiative here. The battle was his to control. I started losing track of my men. Really should have taken the initiative early. Taken that chance. Would I have won the battle? I don't know. But I think it would have turned out better than what I did there when I had that opportunity to charge his sword followers with my mighty horse. So hopefully that's a good lesson for you all here. Whenever you think you see something that's going to give you the initiative, give it a shot. I mean, no risk, no reward, one of those kind of scenarios. HeirofCarthage signing off for now.